Vanessa Brooks suddenly fell down the stairs and lost several years of her memory. When I rushed to the hospital room and heard her agitated voice, I froze. How could I possibly marry a man I met through a matchmaking service? Mom, are you lying to me? We had only been married for half a year. It looked like a divorce was inevitable, I thought to myself. But just as I arrived at the hospital room door, Vanessa Brooks, amnesiac, looked up at me. Her breath seemed to catch. Mom, do you believe in love at first sight? As I neared the hospital room, I heard a heated argument erupting inside. Mom, don't lie to me. I just fell once, how did I suddenly become 25 instead of 18? And you're telling me I'm married? Vanessa Brooks's voice trembled with disbelief. I'm only 25, still in the prime of my youth, why would I be married? Have I lost my mind or are you forcing me into marriage? My mother-in-law was just as agitated. Don't you dare accuse your mother. You got married on your own, don't say I forced you. Whether you want to be married or not is up to you. Their exchange made me hesitate just as I was about to step in. When I received the call from my mother-in-law, I was still on my way back from a business trip. She stammered over the phone, saying that my wife had been married for half a year but had accidentally fallen down the stairs and hit her head. Now she couldn't remember anything after the age of 18. When I met Vanessa Brooks, she was already 22. Which meant the woman lying in that hospital bed no longer remembered me. She didn't even recognize me. No way, her voice rang out again. What kind of illness do I have that I'd get married this early? Tell me, who's the rich young man I supposedly married? The Brooks family owned a well-known business in the region. Since her great-grandfather's time, they had been considered nouveau riche, and by her generation, the family had accumulated considerable wealth. They were definitely of high social standing. Naturally, a family like that would seek a marriage of equal status, not just some random rich guy. Your husband comes from a scholarly family. His parents are both university professors, and their household is quite well off, my mother-in-law said. Then she added with a calm air. He's 2 years older than you, and quite handsome. The two of you met through a matchmaker. What? Vanessa Brooks, whose memory stopped at age 18, exploded. How could I possibly marry a man I met through matchmaking? Mom, are you lying to me? At this point, she seemed to be touching her face. I'm not disfigured, am I? I haven't gotten uglier over the years, right? Why would I need matchmaking? I'm still 18, still full of life. Just yesterday, I was wondering whether to take the college entrance exam or study abroad. And now you're telling me I married a 28-year-old man? Vanessa Brooks's memory loss clearly revealed her dissatisfaction with this marriage. Mom, why didn't you stop me? Stop you? I already told you. You were the one who clung to him, insisting on getting married. You proposed several times. He didn't even want to marry you at first, and you nearly moved into his house by force. Mom clutched her chest as if in pain and continued, also, don't think that just because you've lost your memory, you can act spoiled. You're 22 years old. What's there to complain about? I want a divorce, Vanessa Brooks said firmly. As soon as she finished speaking, the hospital room fell silent for 2 seconds. Mom took a deep breath and sighed. What did I do in my past life to deserve this? I finally waited until you were over 20 and had matured a little. You got married, and now one fall has scrambled your brain. How am I supposed to explain this to your father? Vanessa Brooks's father had passed away from illness when she was in middle school. Mother-in-law had raised her daughter alone, never remarried, and never had another child. She single-handedly brought up a rebellious teenage girl into adulthood. I stood at the hospital room door in silence. It seemed that this marriage, barely 6 months old, might not last. No one knew when, or if, Vanessa Brooks would recover. Would her memory ever come back? After taking a deep breath, I still stepped forward, pushed open the hospital room door, and looked inside. Vanessa Brooks, wearing a patient gown, had her head wrapped in thick bandages. I couldn't tell how bad the injury was. The 18-year-old version of her looked noticeably different from the 22-year-old I knew. That innocent gaze couldn't be faked. She had truly lost her memory. I was just about to speak when she stared at me, as if forgetting to breathe. She pulled on her mother's arm and murmured, "Mom, do you believe in love at first sight?" She kept looking at me for so long that I started wondering whether she might be remembering something. But her face remained confused. "Mom, who is this?" She still didn't recognize me. Mother-in-law let out a cold snort upon seeing her daughter act so clueless. Just as she was about to say something, the doctor walked in. The doctor gave an update on Vanessa Brooks's condition. The patient suffered memory loss due to a concussion. She needed rest and monitoring, and for now, should avoid overusing her brain. As for when her memories might return, the family should be mentally prepared. He explained that Vanessa Brooks had lost 5 years of memory. It might return quickly or take much longer, possibly a week, a month, 6 months, a year, or even 2. The brain is a complex structure, and nothing is guaranteed. Wait, what does that mean? That I might not remember anything past 18 for years? Vanessa Brooks was the first to react. The doctor, trying to reassure her, said her case wasn't too severe and that her memory would most likely recover, though how long it would take depended on her individual situation. "Mom, did you hear that? If I never remember anything, are you really going to make me stay with a complete stranger?" The girl whose mind had stopped at 18 grew emotional. "This will only make him suffer too. It's better to just get a divorce now." Mom opened her mouth but said nothing. She looked at me, then glanced at the doctor. She wanted to scold her daughter but held back. The doctor added, "By the way, the patient's physical condition is stable. She can be discharged. A family member can collect her medication and complete the discharge procedures." I finally spoke. "Mom, I'll go." Vanessa Brooks, still harboring strange thoughts, suddenly locked onto the important detail. "Mom, you have an adult son I didn't know about? Can you even face my father?" Mother-in-law, who had been holding back since her daughter woke up, couldn't take it anymore. "Vanessa Brooks, you better stop right there. That's your husband." "Husband?" The word hit like thunder. The previously stubborn Vanessa Brooks looked like someone had choked her. Her wide, beautiful eyes fixated on me once again. From her expression, I could tell this was a shock. "My husband?" Her voice softened, as if seeking confirmation from both me and her mother. If I wasn't mistaken, her ears had turned slightly red behind her bandaged head. Seeing her daughter's expression, Mom folded her arms like she was watching a play. "Yes, the very same husband you met through matchmaking. Weren't you just shouting about divorcing him earlier?" Vanessa Brooks fell silent. Her head lowered, as if she no longer had the courage to even look at me. Was this shame? Or embarrassment? I couldn't tell what the 18-year-old Vanessa Brooks was feeling. To her now, I really was just a stranger. Just a few steps out of the hospital room, I heard Vanessa Brooks's voice from inside. "Mom, do you think the man I just fell for at first sight? Could he be my husband?" Mother-in-law's tone remained flat. "No, that's just the man about to become your ex-husband." After completing the discharge procedures for Vanessa Brooks, her mother and I took her home. In the 6 months we'd been married, Vanessa Brooks and I had been living in the apartment her family prepared for the wedding, a spacious unit in a high-end residential complex, just the two of us. Mother-in-law was in good health and had no intention of living with her daughter and son-in-law. Regarding where Vanessa Brooks should stay now, her mother and I had a discussion. I thought she should temporarily return to her childhood home to rest. It might be more comfortable for her. But mother-in-law firmly said, "Ethan, I know this situation is difficult for you, but she can't go back to work yet. I'll be busy with the company and won't have time to take care of her. It's better for her to stay where she was. Who knows, maybe seeing you every day will help her recover her memory faster." She had a point. Besides, since we were already talking about divorce and now Vanessa Brooks had calmed down, I agreed. In the car, the driver was behind the wheel. Mother-in-law sat in the front passenger seat. I sat in the back with Vanessa Brooks. These past few days working overseas had been hectic. Even the return trip was exhausting. After hearing she was hospitalized, I hadn't even had time to adjust to the time zone before rushing straight to the hospital. Finally, I could close my eyes and rest. But even with my eyes closed, I felt a gaze lingering on my face. When I opened them, it seemed like it had only been my imagination. Maybe the driver was just smooth, or maybe I was just that exhausted. I didn't even know when I'd fallen asleep. When I woke up, the sun outside was setting. Inside the car, the driver and my mother-in-law were gone. My head was resting on someone's shoulder. At the same moment I lifted my head, Vanessa Brooks opened her eyes too. Her gaze still carried a trace of confusion. She hesitated, then spoke, "You fell asleep earlier. This is the first time I've talked to you since losing my memory. Why didn't you wake me up?" I asked. Vanessa Brooks didn't answer directly. We hadn't been here long. My mom had something to do, so she left first. After getting out of the car, Vanessa Brooks quietly followed behind me. She had no memories beyond the age of 18, so naturally, she didn't know which building, which floor our marital home was in. On the way up, I wondered how I was supposed to live with a wife who no longer remembered our time together. To her, I was just a stranger she happened to have legally married. Vanessa Brooks and I met through a matchmaker. At 25, my parents, both teachers, began mobilizing their entire network to set me up. Their view of marriage was quite traditional. They'd lived together for many years, respected each other, rarely argued, perhaps because they worked at the same school and had plenty to talk about. I remember even as a child, I had to sleep in my own room early on. The reason? My parents insisted on their nightly ritual, lying in bed discussing coworkers, superiors, and students before falling asleep. It wasn't always gossip, just a couple with an overwhelming need to share. As a kid, I couldn't stay up late. Naturally, I wasn't included in their meetings. That's why I didn't date anyone before 25, not because I didn't want to, just because I hadn't met anyone worth dating. But my parents, the constant conversationalists, never quite understood that. In their eyes, a polite and well-mannered son like me had no reason to still be single at 25. Although they didn't support early dating, my parents had always been open-minded in most other aspects of raising me. I participated in every matchmaking they arranged. The candidates they handpicked were all excellent. Among the women I was introduced to, there were former students of theirs, daughters of colleagues, and children of acquaintances from various circles. Setting aside their personal traits, all of them were objectively attractive and well-qualified. But somehow, they all lacked that certain spark. Some looked fine, spoke well, and had decent manners, nothing to complain about. A few of them have since become good friends. When they got married, we even invited each other to the weddings. After all, between people, between men and women, not every relationship must be romantic. Not every bond must lead to love. Among those candidates, Vanessa Brooks stood out as something different. She was the last person I was matched with, neither a student of my parents, nor the daughter of a colleague, nor someone from our circle. She came through a professional matchmaker. At the time, the matchmaker told us that a local businesswoman was looking for a son-in-law for her daughter. The woman had personally asked for the introduction, and the candidate, she said, was well qualified in every aspect. Especially when she revealed that the businesswoman was none other than mother-in-law. My mother thought this match might be worth meeting. Mother-in-law was somewhat well known in the city for her good deeds, philanthropy, and charitable donations. The only thing that seemed to trouble her was her daughter's marital status. Compared to Vanessa Brooks, it was actually my family who knew mother-in-law first. I was the first, and only, match Vanessa Brooks had ever been on. When I first met her at the restaurant, I was surprised. She was 23, had graduated less than 2 years prior, and still had a youthful, student-like air to her. She was far more beautiful than I'd imagined. She didn't look at all like someone in a rush to get married. That day, she appeared in a soft, flowing dress, elegant and gentle. Sometimes, people experience an inexplicable sixth sense. That day, during our match, I had a strong subconscious feeling that she and I were meant to have a story together. After dinner, she asked me if I wanted to take a walk or see a movie. These are subtle signals during a match, signs that she was interested. And my acceptance meant I felt the same. But starting a relationship through matchmaking inevitably leads one to evaluate conditions, hers and my own. Given her family background, she could have easily chosen someone more compatible in terms of status. From the time we began seeing each other to the day we got married, I had turned her down several times. But she matched my aesthetic perfectly. That physical attraction, combined with her persistence, brought us together. We did fall in love, once. From meeting to marriage, it took only 2 years. Our married life was sweet, until the accident happened. Now, Vanessa Brooks wandered through our wedding apartment, completely unfamiliar. She had lost her memory, didn't even know the layout of our home. We'd only been married for half a year. Some of the newlywed decorations were still up. Vanessa Brooks looked at the large, 3D red happiness character on the wall and fell into a silent daze. "It's so ugly," she blurted out. After making the comment, she seemed to remember I was right beside her and turned to glance at me. I kept a straight face. "You insisted on putting that up back then." Before the wedding, she had insisted on hanging that oversized traditional decoration in our home. That vintage aesthetic wasn't just popular here, but after the wedding, most of the decor had been taken down, except for that red character. Now, all that remained was silence. She looked at me, then at the character on the wall. Clearly confused about her past taste. After a pause, she hesitated and asked, "What's your name again? And are we really married?" I didn't know what she thought of our marriage now. Or rather, what she thought of me, her husband. Even though I knew we were legally married and that her memory might recover one day, that unfamiliar look in the eyes of the woman I shared a bed with still left me unsettled. I went into the master bedroom and took out our 2 marriage certificates from the drawer, handing them to her. "These are our marriage certificates. My name is Ethan Walker." Vanessa Brooks flipped through the 2 booklets, her expression curious and new. I couldn't tell what she was thinking. She looked down at the pages for a few seconds, then raised her head to look at me. With her memory frozen at 18, she clearly hadn't come to terms with the fact that she was now a married woman. The doorbell rang just then. It was the housekeeper arranged by mother-in-law to help take care of her daughter's meals during this period. The housekeeper walked straight into the kitchen and quickly prepared a meal. Vanessa Brooks and I sat in silence, eating together. After the meal, she didn't stay still. She wandered around the apartment until she stopped in front of the master bedroom door. "Can I go in and take a look?" she asked. "Of course. This is your room too." After losing her memory, Vanessa Brooks slowly stepped into what had been our shared bedroom. She stopped in her tracks as soon as she entered, turned to look at me, and spoke in disbelief. You sleep on pink sheets now? With a pink blanket? What about it?" I asked. "You seem to like it quite a lot. You never complained about the little flower prints either." Maybe the 18-year-old girl she now remembered being hadn't yet realized. After marriage, men basically lose all say in choosing bed linens. Now, faced with the overwhelmingly pink set, she looked genuinely baffled. Good-looking guys can't sleep under pink covers? I joked. You can check out the room. I'm going to take a shower. I'll reapply your medicine after. I had no idea that as soon as I left the room to shower, Vanessa Brooks started pacing restlessly in the bedroom. But I was simply too exhausted. From the moment I heard about her accident to the day she was discharged, my nerves had been stretched taut. All I wanted now was a hot shower and a good night's sleep. When I emerged from the bathroom in pajamas, I saw her standing beside the nightstand, quietly closing a drawer. Even from behind, I could tell how flustered she was from the way she moved. I raised an eyebrow. There were, admittedly, a few questionable things in that drawer. Vanessa Brooks used to stock up like she was running a supply store. She'd bought an entire box of family planning products, neatly organized into 2 drawers. In the other drawer, there were even a few small toys. Even if her memory only went back to when she was 18, she wasn't exactly a child. She turned around and looked at me. My pajamas were completely ordinary. Just plain black polka-dot sleepwear. I was about to walk over when she suddenly stepped back, covering her face and saying, "Don't come over yet." She sat down on the sofa by the floor-to-ceiling window, her hands over her face, her whole body as if ready to explode from embarrassment. It had been a long time since I'd seen her look so shy. Even during our first kiss, or our first time in bed, she hadn't reacted like this. One fall to the head, and now I was witnessing a version of her I'd never seen before. She was younger, bashful in a way I'd forgotten. "Are you okay?" I asked. Her ears were bright red. She'd always had fair skin, and usually she was calm, rarely showing emotion on her face. I was about to step a bit closer to check on her when my phone rang. It was my mother. "Ethan, how's Vanessa? Is it serious?" I answered softly, "Physically she's fine. Just needs some rest." But she really did lose her memory. I glanced over at Vanessa Brooks and let out a quiet mm. My mother's voice came through the phone again, anxious. "What do we do then? If she never remembers, can you two still live like this?" "It'll be fine. The doctor said she should recover." At such a critical time, there was no need to let my mother worry even more. After I hung up the phone, my eyes returned to Vanessa Brooks. I walked toward her. The closer I got, the more her pupils trembled. "What are you trying to do?" she asked. I stopped in front of her, looking down at her sitting on the sofa. I reached out, placed my hand gently on her head, and said softly, "Let me check your wound first." Compared to her, I was actually the calmer one. This was my wife. Touching her like this was perfectly natural. As I unwrapped the bandage, I saw the wound on her forehead. The wife who had been just fine before my business trip. When I returned, not only was there a new cut on her forehead, but she didn't even remember me. She'd forgotten she'd graduated, forgotten she had a job, even forgotten that she was married. 5 years of memories gone just like that. My feelings were complicated, a mix of sweetness brought by her innocence, and heartache for what she'd lost. Instinctively, I blew lightly on the wound, not noticing how Vanessa Brooks stiffened, not daring to move. "Does it hurt?" I asked. It took a few seconds before she replied, her voice muffled, "It doesn't hurt as much now." I almost bent down to kiss her on the forehead as I would usually do for comfort, but remembering that her memory had stopped at 18, I gave up on that thought. "Don't move around. Let me change your bandage," I said gently. I focused on cleaning and redressing her wound, unaware of how close I was leaning in. Strands of my hair brushed against her face, and she was completely surrounded by the scent of my body wash. When I finished wrapping the new bandage, I finally noticed how flushed she looked. Only then did I take a step back. I was about to say something when she looked up and asked, "Can you tell me how we ended up together?" That wasn't something easily explained in a few sentences. If I had to summarize it, We met through a matchmaker. That's not what I meant, she interrupted. There was a pause before she awkwardly asked, what did you like about me? Honestly, this amnesiac version of Vanessa Brooks was rather amusing. But how was I supposed to answer that? Because you were born beautiful, and your family is wealthy. That was the shallowest, and also the most realistic, answer. That's it? She clearly wasn't satisfied. Her brows furrowed. We met through matchmaking, right? Isn't that exactly what those things are based on? I teased. There's nothing else about me you liked? She refused to give in and asked again. Of course there is, I pretended to think deeply. Seeing how curious she looked, I couldn't help but chuckle. You have a great figure. And, our sex life was very compatible. You saw the evidence just now, didn't you? I nodded toward the nightstand drawer still full of family planning supplies. And just like that, my wife blushed once more. Teasing this 18-year-old version of her was unexpectedly fun. Her face hadn't changed, but even without the memories, because she was still her. I didn't really feel guilty. So, you only liked me for my looks and my body? She questioned me seriously. I crossed my arms and looked at her for a while before smiling faintly. Then what about you? You asked for a divorce at the hospital. Still want to divorce me now? She went silent. It's not the same, she argued. How is it different? She couldn't explain, only repeated, it's just, not the same. I didn't press the issue. Instead, I turned and sat on the bed, looking at her. I'm going to sleep. What about you? She looked a bit confused by the sudden change in topic. She had remembered we were married, and that we normally shared a bed. She stood there, dazed for a long moment. I smiled and said, you can sleep in the room next door for now. I've already had the bed prepared. Your clothes are in the walk-in closet in the master bedroom. If you feel uncomfortable, move some to the wardrobe in your room. Vanessa Brooks first responded with an hesitated for 2 seconds, then suddenly realized something. You already had everything planned and didn't tell me, just to watch me panic, didn't you? You think of me that way? I raised an eyebrow at her. If you don't mind, you can sleep here. Next to me. Our eyes met. Vanessa Brooks, having lost her memory, couldn't take it. She ran out of our bedroom within seconds. I looked at her retreating figure and couldn't help but laugh quietly. After that, I didn't have the energy to think about anything else. As soon as I turned off the lights and laid my head on the pillow, I immediately fell asleep. When I woke up the next day, it was already noon. As soon as I stepped out of the bedroom, I found Vanessa Brooks sitting on the sofa, lost in thought. When she heard the door open, she turned her head sharply, like a wary little dog. There were faint dark circles under her eyes. Looks like you didn't sleep well last night. How are you feeling today? I asked. Nothing much, she replied. I walked closer to her and cautiously asked, do you remember anything? Vanessa Brooks paused for a moment before shaking her head. Still just memories from when I was 18. It's fine, I should focus on healing first. I raised my hand, wanting to touch her face, but stopped halfway. Now didn't seem like the right time. I just got back from a business trip, and there are some things going on at home. I'm taking the day off today, and we're having guests over later. 2 of Vanessa Brooks's childhood friends would be visiting. They were close, having known each other since they were little kids running around in open-crotch pants. After we got married, her friends naturally became mine too. Vanessa Brooks had probably stayed up all night checking her phone. When she first picked it up, she couldn't even remember the password. The one she used at 18 was long outdated, but thankfully, facial recognition still worked. She gave me a look I couldn't quite read, deep and unreadable. At 1 p.m., the long-awaited childhood friends finally arrived. But for the current Vanessa Brooks, they brought a small surprise. When Ryan Carter and Sophia Miller stepped into the house, Vanessa Brooks clearly grew excited to see them. She had probably imagined many times how they might have changed after 5 years. But clearly, her imagination fell short. She looked at the two friends, now visibly more mature, and then at the toddler crawling on the carpet beside them. Her entire body stiffened. "No way. One of you has a kid already?" Ryan Carter leaned in to look at her closely, confused. "Vanessa, do you really only remember things from before you were 18? Sophia Miller was even more outrageous. She directly cupped Vanessa Brooks's face for inspection. "Good. Just a bit of brain damage. Your face is still perfectly fine." Vanessa Brooks swatted her hands away. But what she really cared about was, whose child was that? Ryan Carter turned to look at me. "She really doesn't remember anything?" I shook my head. "Vanessa Brooks, this is our daughter, mine and Sophia Miller's. She's almost 1 now." The air seemed to freeze for 2 full seconds. Vanessa Brooks's pupils widened. By the time she processed what she just heard, it was too late. She looked at the round-eyed child crawling on the floor, then at the two friends standing on either side of her, both looking like they'd suffered deep emotional trauma. You two had a kid together?" She abruptly stood up, her voice rising. "When did you even get together?" Not waiting for them to answer, she turned to Sophia Miller with agitation. "Didn't you say, even if all the men in the world died, you still wouldn't look at Ryan Carter?" Then she looked at Ryan Carter. "And didn't you say you'd only ever marry a quiet, gentle girl? You two being together, doesn't it feel like incest or something?" Under the shock, Vanessa Brooks lost all filter in her words. She felt like the sad, forgotten third wheel in a once pure trio of best friends. In her eyes, Ryan Carter and Sophia Miller had betrayed a friendship that should have remained platonic. But to her surprise, after those cutting words, the reaction she got wasn't guilt. Ryan Carter looked at her with genuine surprise. "You know, that's exactly what you said the first time you found out we were together, almost word for word. Are you and Robot on repeat or something?" Vanessa Brooks was at a loss for words. The child on the ground suddenly seemed to spot something and toddled over to her. First, he grabbed onto her pant leg with his chubby little hands, then clutched tightly and pulled himself up by leaning against her leg. Vanessa Brooks didn't dare move a muscle. She and the child stared at each other. The memory loss had already left her confused, and now this situation only added to her disorientation. But the child, who had clearly never been shy around strangers, simply hugged her leg without hesitation. The child's parents stood nearby, watching the scene unfold with interest. Ryan Carter laughed and said, "Sweetie, this is your Aunt Vanessa. Too bad she still can't talk yet. She's only just started saying mama, so now when she sees Vanessa Brooks, all she can manage are a few baby syllables. Cute, right?" Ryan Carter and Sophia Miller were both good-looking, and their child had inherited that. When I first met them, they were already married. Sophia Miller was pregnant at the time, and Ryan Carter was doting and attentive. I'd heard they had known each other since they were little, childhood sweethearts, a perfect match. Of course, no one would have guessed they used to be at odds. My poor wife used to worry about them, afraid of who she'd end up with if they ever split up. I first found out about Vanessa Brooks when she happened to run into an incident with a client. She had been watching a dramatic scene unfold where a wife was catching her cheating husband with a mistress, and in the chaos, she was accidentally shoved down the stairs. Ryan Carter and Sophia Miller laughed so hard at the story they could barely stay upright. Even knowing that bizarre reason for her injury, it was still hard to believe the whole thing. But Vanessa Brooks remembered none of it. She faced her two childhood friends without any emotion as they laughed together. I gave them some space to talk and went out to buy a few things. When I came back, Vanessa Brooks was awkwardly holding the baby. She had held this child before, of course. Back when she was still a tiny, soft bundle. At that time, Vanessa Brooks cradled her like she was handling a live bomb. Now, maybe her body retained some muscle memory, and she was doing better. She stared down at the cute baby in her arms for a long moment, then looked up at the couple before her. Such an adorable little girl, of course she must be their child. Lost in thought, Vanessa Brooks's face was unreadable. Sophia Miller and Ryan Carter whispered to each other, "Look at her. Even with memory loss, she's still sharp-tongued as ever." I wondered whether her two childhood friends had truly taken the time to fill her in on all the major events of the past few years. When I returned, her eyes on me were strange, even a bit evasive. I invited Ryan Carter and his wife to stay for dinner. During the meal, their daughter fell asleep in the stroller beside us, a few dried teardrops still clinging to her cheeks from earlier. She looked very sweet. Vanessa Brooks had hit her head not long ago. Over the past few days, she still had some lingering symptoms, like needing a few seconds to recognize me when she saw me, or not remembering where she'd put things. But none of that was serious. She was slowly recovering and getting used to having me around. Unfortunately, she still couldn't recall anything from before. Since she was discharged from the hospital, we'd been sleeping in separate rooms for half a month. The loss of 7 years of memory meant that Vanessa Brooks had to rebuild her entire connection to the world. From age 18 to 25, her education, career, and social relationships had all changed. I knew very little about that part of her life, and it would take her family and friends to help her piece it all back together. Lately, many guests had come to visit, friends and relatives, all there to check in on her. Among them were quite a few she didn't remember at all. Watching her fail to recognize any of them gave me a complicated feeling that was hard to put into words. After knowing her for more than 2 years, maybe our bond hadn't grown into something unforgettable. Still, thinking about it deeply made me feel a bit sad. A month passed. Vanessa Brooks still hadn't recovered her memory, but the wound on her forehead had improved a lot. The bandage had long been removed, and there was no need to wrap it again. The scar was still visible, though, who knew whether it would fade. One night, she looked like she wanted to say something but hesitated several times. Finally, just before I went to bed, she brought her phone over to me. There was a photo album on her phone, locked with a password. "Do you know the password?" she asked awkwardly. Lately, Vanessa Brooks had been adapting well to using facial recognition. I had told her that her screen lock password and payment PIN didn't seem to be the same anymore. I glanced at the screen she was pointing to, slightly surprised. I hadn't known that there was a private album on Vanessa Brooks's phone. I didn't know the password. "Are you sure you want me to try?" I asked, phone already in hand but still turning back to confirm with her. Even between a husband and wife sharing the same bed, it's hard to assume absolute honesty. I had never gone through Vanessa Brooks's phone before, and I didn't know what I might find. Vanessa Brooks paused at my question, then after a moment, softly said, "Aren't you my husband?" So quietly that only she could hear it. The corners of my mouth lifted slightly, almost imperceptibly. Vanessa Brooks was someone who valued ritual. Every one of her passwords held some kind of meaning. I tried a few sequences, all incorrect. This private album really did seem to be a secret she had kept. At first, I wasn't particularly curious. But after several failed attempts, my curiosity was thoroughly piqued. After thinking for a bit, I cautiously tried another set of numbers. It opened. Before I could even process how I felt, I saw the contents of the album. Vanessa Brooks leaned over to glance at the screen too. The album had only a few hundred photos, every single one of them was of me. Some had appeared on my moments. Some were photos she had taken of me on our dates. Photos of just me, photos of the two of us together. And many I had never seen before. Clearly, some had been secretly taken. The very first photo in the album was one of me sitting in a cafe, taken from outside the window, framed beautifully. But the strange thing was the date it was taken. At that time, I hadn't even met Vanessa Brooks yet. Logically, she shouldn't have known me. My eyes drifted from the phone screen to her face beside me. She didn't remember anything, and clearly hadn't expected that her pre-amnesia self had been secretly collecting photos of her future husband on her phone. "Why are all these pictures of me in a private album?" I asked. "And why are so many of them secretly taken?" Vanessa Brooks had no explanation. Her cheeks flushed red with embarrassment. She reached for the phone, wanting to snatch it back, but I was quicker. First, I turned off the screen. Then I handed it back to her. But she didn't leave. She stood there, staring at me. Her eyes slightly lowered, as if she were silently struggling with something. "What was the password?" she asked at last, unable to escape my inquisitive gaze. I smiled, not wanting to make it hard for her. I told her the numbers. "Do you know what that date means?" I asked. Though still blushing, she insisted I continue. "It was the day we kissed for the first time." I stared at her lips as I said it. If it were the old Vanessa Brooks, she'd already be leaning in closer right now. But this version of you, the one with amnesia, just gets shy instead. Which is kind of cute. With a confused expression, she took her phone and returned to her room. In this house, traces of our life together are everywhere. It wasn't hard for Vanessa Brooks to notice. We used to be very close. I took the chance to bring her for a checkup. It wasn't anything serious, just temporary memory loss. Mom, who is actually my mother-in-law, had come over several times lately to visit her rebellious daughter. But the two of them, they could never hold a proper conversation. Just half a sentence could already spark an argument. Mom sighed, "Yep, that's definitely my daughter. She's been driving people mad since she was 18. A mother, torn between nostalgia and frustration, finally resorting to lecturing. I wasn't home all the time. When I was at work, Vanessa Brooks would either stay home or go out for a walk. But I was older than her by a bit, and her mind was currently stuck at 18. So I couldn't help but worry when she went out. I reminded her once, "If you go out, it's best to send me your location." Tonight had something to do with that. When I glanced at my phone after work, I noticed she had sent me her location about an hour ago, saying she was going to meet some friends for a small gathering. I checked the location. It was a club. Vanessa Brooks had quite a few friends. Like Ryan Carter and Sophia Miller, once among her closest. They were the kind of friends who knew where she came from but not who she truly was, people who only ever stayed on the surface. I was worried. With her memory loss, she might be easily tricked, might even help others count the money they swindled from her. So I messaged her, asking when she'd be done and saying I'd come pick her up. She replied right away, "You can come now." I'd been to that club 2 or 3 times before. Following the room number she gave me, I found my way there. When I got to the door, I saw it was slightly open. No music playing inside, just voices talking. Through the gap, I saw a man with his hand on Vanessa Brooks's shoulder, pouring her a drink and saying, "Vanessa, you said you don't remember the past, don't remember how you met your husband. Why not just get a divorce and start fresh? You two aren't even really well matched. You're mentally only 18 now. What, you're going to spend your whole life with a man 7 years older than you? With your looks and background, you could find any type of guy you want." I stood at the door, wondering if it was a bad time to walk in. Then I heard her voice. "You okay in the head? There's a saying, tear down 10 temples if you must, but never destroy a marriage. I'm perfectly fine and you're telling me to get a divorce? And you call that decent? But didn't you lose your memory?" I lost my memory, not my feelings for my husband. Just then, a server carrying a fruit platter passed by, noticed me standing there and asked, "Hello, can I help you with something?" As they leaned sideways, the door was pushed open further. People inside turned to look. I met Vanessa Brooks's gaze. She stood up. As she walked out, she even scoffed coldly at the guy from before, "My husband's here to pick me up." She followed me to the car in silence. I glanced at her under the faint light, her face had a soft pink flush. "Did you drink a lot?" I asked. She lowered her gaze. "Not that much." But as she got out of the car, she stumbled slightly. Clearly, she'd had more than just a little. While we were going upstairs, Vanessa Brooks finally spoke. "That woman tonight," she said, "she used to be close to me these past few years. That's why I agreed to meet." She was clearly frustrated I couldn't remember anything from the last 7 years. I let out a soft "She wanted to be close to you, and she knew you lost your memory, so how could she tell you the two of you were never really that close?" Vanessa Brooks seemed to realize it too. She didn't say anything else. After entering the room, I went to take a shower first. When I came out, I saw that she was already in her pajamas. Vanessa Brooks was sitting on the sofa in the bedroom. Lately, she rarely came into the master bedroom unless she needed something, so she must have just finished her shower as well. Her hair was still a little messy, the scar on her forehead still noticeable, but under this lighting, her facial features were truly beautiful beyond words. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "Are you mad at me?" she suddenly asked. That question caught me off guard. "Why do you ask that?" Vanessa Brooks looked up at me. "I don't know, it just feels like you're upset." "I'm not." I denied it, yet she seemed convinced otherwise. I chuckled, "Then tell me, why would I be mad?" Her gaze didn't waver. "I don't know, that's why I'm asking you." A bit clever, but not too much. I let out a laugh and was about to walk away when she grabbed my hand. "Ethan," she called softly. I paused. Vanessa Brooks pulled me a little closer, looking up at me, but her eyes were slightly lowered, with a hint of grievance. "I don't remember anything, and I don't understand you," she said quietly. "If you don't tell me, how would I know?" After a pause, I said, "You haven't fully recovered yet. Who told you it was okay to go out drinking?" "I'm sorry." She apologized quickly, but even her apology carried a faint tone of sadness. She was still holding my hand. The scent of body wash on her, mixed with mine, lingered softly in the air. "It's all right," I said. "You should rest now." But she didn't let go. Instead, she wrapped her arms around my waist. She was seated, so I stood taller than her. Looking down, I could see the dazed look in her eyes. The next second, she buried her face against my chest. She was hugging me. Her voice came muffled against me. "I've really tried to remember the past, but I just can't." "Is it because of that, you don't want me anymore?" "When did I say I don't want you?" I asked. Still in my arms, she accused softly, "You've been cold to me." I looked through our past messages. "You weren't like this before. Now you go to work every day and ignore me. You are cold." But she didn't remember the past 7 years, her world was paused at 18. Could I really treat her like I did back then? I thought for a moment, then said gently. "You only remember yourself at 18. But I'm already 25. With the way your mind is now, it doesn't feel right for us to be the same as before." "What's not right?" she asked. "Even if I only remember being 18, I'm still an adult." She looked up at me, and I noticed her eyes were slightly red. "Do you only like the me at 23? You think I'm childish now? Even if I can't remember things, I can learn again. Feelings can be nurtured again. Just, don't treat me so coldly." She paused, then added, "It makes me feel awful." Even with tears in her eyes, she looked stunning. I couldn't help but raise my hand and wipe the tear trailing from the corner of her eye. My heart stirred. "Are you sure you really like me now?" I asked. "Like?" she repeated without hesitation. Yes. Maybe because of the memory loss, or because her mind was still young, her way of expressing love was more direct, more passionate. I cupped her face and leaned down, kissing her lips. A soft gesture of comfort. But her reaction was more intense. She wrapped her arms around me and pulled me down onto the bed with her. Eyes bright, she asked eagerly, "Can I kiss you again?" The soft golden light from the ceiling lamp cast a warm glow. Vanessa Brooks, on top of me, seemed to have returned to her true self. Our kisses were clumsy but eager, like we were discovering each other for the first time again. And now, I found her awkwardness oddly endearing. I couldn't help teasing her a little. When she leaned in again, I turned my head. Her kiss landed on my cheek, and she looked displeased. Grabbing my chin, she kissed me again, firmly this time. She kissed again and again, stubbornly, like a small puppy. Our bodies naturally drew closer. At one point, Vanessa Brooks froze. She looked up at me with slight confusion and embarrassment. Teasing a wife with amnesia was unexpectedly amusing. I couldn't hold back a laugh. "You forgot me," I said. "But this doesn't seem forgotten, does it?" Her earlobes turned red, almost crimson. I reached out to touch them. They were noticeably warm. I flipped her under me, leaned down, and kissed her again. "Stop joking." When I tried to get up, she clung to me tightly. Her breathing ragged, her chest rising and falling quickly. She said, "Can we continue?" as she pulled a pink blanket over herself. Vanessa Brooks looked a little downcast, staring blankly. "It's not that your performance was bad. It was too good." So good that Vanessa couldn't help but exclaim, "Turns out I really am no longer an innocent girl." If she thought about the family planning supplies in the bedside drawer, how could it be? After that night, Vanessa Brooks became somewhat like someone who had just fallen in love. Specifically, she became very passionate, extremely passionate, and each time she improved. Of course, she moved back into the master bedroom. As for her memory, there were still no signs of recovery. Mother-in-law decided to teach her how to manage the company from scratch. After all, memory was lost but not broken, it could still be used. However, lately, my mother-in-law and her daughter have been arguing more and more. I couldn't understand how she could be so well-behaved with me but liked to argue when with her mom. Mother-in-law vented to the photo of her late husband in frustration. Vanessa Brooks recovered her memory 3 months after her accident. That day wasn't anything special. She went into the kitchen to get a glass of water. Suddenly, I heard the sound of a cup falling to the floor. I walked over and saw her sitting on the floor, holding her head. "Vanessa, are you okay?" I knelt beside her. "Is your head hurting? I'll take you to the hospital." "Wait a minute," she stopped me. "Let me calm down first." Too many images had suddenly rushed into her mind, painful and dizzying. She couldn't stand up. I asked, "You're remembering things, aren't you?" "Maybe," she said, leaning weakly on my shoulder. "Carry me." Even if she was just trying to take advantage, the pain seemed real. I held her for a long time, and later that night, we made a trip to the hospital. She had really regained her memory. The scan came out fine, and the doctor said to just go home and rest. The next morning, I woke up to find Vanessa Brooks lying beside me, staring at me with a soft smile in her eyes. Who knows how long she had been watching. "Honey," she said. That word made me realize, she truly remembered everything. "You remember me now," I said as I stroked her face. She leaned down and kissed my hand. "Amicham." I stared at her for a few seconds, then suddenly said, "I have a question for you." I sat up abruptly, straddling her. Vanessa Brooks hadn't noticed anything unusual and smiled, letting me sit. "Can you explain why there's a photo of me on your phone, taken before we even met?" The smile froze on her lips. "Honey, "Do you believe in love at first sight?" she asked. According to her account, she happened to see me at a blind date in a coffee shop. Her heart was moved, and she even followed one of my dates. After returning home, she asked her mother to find a matchmaker. Otherwise, how do you think that matchmaker, who wasn't biased, ended up at your house? She laughed and said, "I wanted to accuse her of falling for your looks, but Vanessa Brooks won't admit it. But everything that followed proves we're well matched, right? Besides, if I can fall for your looks, you can fall for mine too. It's fair. You once said," she continued, "I'm beautiful, with a great figure, and our sex life is really compatible." She used my own words, ones I had told her during her memory loss, to shut me up. I had nothing to say. "Is that all you really like about me?" she asked. Of course not. Vanessa Brooks wasn't just beautiful, rich, and well-educated. She was also kind, honest, responsible, self-disciplined, and respectful of others. All these good traits made her who she was, a genuinely wonderful person. Loving her wasn't difficult. I smiled at her. "I love everything about you." In the 3rd year of our marriage, our son was born. Mother-in-law, while thrilled to become a grandmother, couldn't resist the urge to enjoy the drama. Finally, her daughter would experience the hardship of raising a child. But unexpectedly, our baby boy was angelic. He would eat and sleep peacefully, wake up to eat again, smile when teased, and only cry when hungry or pooping. Mother-in-law wanted to say, "Don't get cocky." But when the baby, during his babbling phase, uttered, "Grandma," she was overjoyed. "Yes, my sweet boy," she said. "Grandma will buy you a big house and a fancy car." And from that moment, the spoiling began. Vanessa Brooks whispered into my ear, "Honey, are you free this weekend? Let my mom watch the baby, let's go on a 2-day trip." Mother-in-law, who was lovingly cradling her precious grandchild, had no idea. Her daughter had just quietly planned out her entire weekend. Epilogue: Before meeting Ethan, Vanessa Brooks never believed in love at first sight. That day, outside the cafe, she saw him, wearing a simple white shirt and a blazer. Before his blind date even arrived, he was already sitting there, working on his laptop. For Vanessa Brooks, love at first sight wasn't about being attracted to someone's looks. It was about that very first moment she laid eyes on him. Before knowing his name, age, or background, her heart had already stirred. Perhaps it was just mutual magnetic pull, a resonance of energy. In that instant, Vanessa Brooks felt like her soul had been marked somehow. He was going to be hers.